Welcome to Mission Majjhima. Ajahn.
Ajahn.
So tell us about the Cūḻagosiṅga Sutta, Majjhima 31.
So the Cūḻagosiṅga Sutta is one of my favorites and one of the most well-known discourses in the canon. And it basically begins with the Buddha approaching the dwelling place of three monks, Venerable Anuruddha, Kimbila, and Nandiya, who have been living together in harmony there. And although he's initially stopped by the gatekeeper or the groundskeeper, they tell him to tell the groundskeeper to let the Buddha in. An interesting instance where we see that the Buddha didn't look that different than other mendicants, actually, since the groundskeeper wasn't able to tell it was the Buddha. And then the Buddha asks, and I'm going to read some quotes because they're just such beautiful quotes and there's so much in there. He asks, I hope you are all keeping well, Anuruddha. I hope you are all comfortable. I hope you are all not having any trouble getting alms food. I hope, Anuruddha, that you are all living in concord with mutual appreciation without disputing, blending like milk and water, viewing each other with kindly eyes. And Venerable Anuruddha answers that they are. And when the Buddha asks how they are doing this, he gives the answer. Venerable Sir, as to that, I think thus, it is a gain for me, it is a great gain for me, that I am living with such companions in the holy life. I maintain bodily acts of loving kindness towards those venerable ones, both openly and privately, verbal acts, mental acts, both openly and privately. I consider, why should I not set aside what I wish to do and do what these venerable ones wish to do? Then I set aside what I wish to do and do what these venerable ones wish to do. We are different in body, Venerable Sir, but one in mind. So then the Buddha goes on and asks if they are dwelling ardent and resolute, and Venerable Anuruddha says they are. And when the Buddha asks how they are doing that, Venerable Anuruddha basically gives an outline of their day-to-day life in very practical terms and finishes by saying that they maintain noble silence around one another, except for every 5 days when they gather and speak about Dhamma throughout the night. Which is just this beautiful image in the suttas of the fact that even arahants, which we find out they are later, just speak about Dhamma all night. And there's something so beautiful about that fact. Going on, the Buddha then asks if they've achieved any superhuman attainments, and Venerable Anuruddha very humbly doesn't immediately say, I've achieved enlightenment. He says he's achieved the lowest state that would count in that case, which is the first jhana. And then the Buddha pushes him to say a little more, and he goes on until finally acknowledges that he's attained Nirodha Samapatti, an attainment only available to non-returners and arahants. So that humility instantiated in this discourse is kind of beautiful and easy to miss. And he also uses the pronoun we, including his companions. And when the Buddha leaves, his companions ask how Venerable Anuruddha knew that they also had achieved enlightenment and these other states. And he says that he'd read their minds. And the fact that these three beings, all enlightened, had lived together and not spoken about their arahantship, just that humility, is kind of astounding. And then this final moment where the heaven realms rejoice in how they're living together in concord, this resounding up through the world system, up to the Brahma realm, only happens a few times in the whole canon. And for me, it really punctuates that this humble vision of how monastics could live together, how people can live together in harmony, is profoundly important, such that the whole heaven realms, the whole world system echoes with its, rejoices in it. So, Ajahn, what would you draw out of this discourse for us?
Well, something similar to what you pointed out, this graduated questioning that the Buddha does, and we see it in this sutta, and we see it in a good handful of others, where the Buddha asks very specific questions, and I've kind of come to see it as almost like a Buddhist hierarchy of needs, similar to Maslow's, and very similar, actually. So the first question when the Buddha asks, I hope you're all keeping well, I hope you are all comfortable, I hope you are not having any trouble getting alms food. This is similar to Maslow's needs of belonging and his physiological needs and safety needs. So these most basic needs in the pyramid, in the hierarchy. And then once they say, yes, our basic needs are met, we're getting enough food, then the Buddha says, okay, that's good. I hope that you are living in concord with mutual appreciation, without disputing, blending like milk and water, viewing each other with kindly eyes. This is somewhat equivalent to Maslow's needs of belonging and love, then when they say, yes, we are getting along well, then the Buddha says, okay, take it to the next level. Raise it up the pyramid. Good, good. I hope you all abide diligent, ardent, and resolute. So these are things which would lead to, in Maslow's framing, esteem. Esteem is you feel good about, one feels good about oneself when one is diligent, ardent, and resolute in one's living and one's livelihood. And then when they say, yes, we are abiding diligent, ardent, resolute, the Buddha then asks, taking it to the next step, good, good. But while you abide thus diligent, ardent, resolute, have you attained any superhuman state, a distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones, a comfortable abiding? This is, it actually goes beyond Maslow. His highest state, the pinnacle of the pyramid, is self-actualization, whereas the Buddha takes it to actualizing past self. So full liberation that is even liberated from the self. So a neat kind of correlation with Western psychology.
Well, that's really good.
Yeah. And for yourself, Ajahn, anything else you'd like to draw out?
Just briefly, I might note that the Buddha addresses these three friends as Anuruddhas, noting that in Pali parlance, you could address a group by kind of one member of them. So I think this is helpful in noting that whenever the bhikkhu or the Buddha addresses bhikkhus, he might be addressing a much larger assembly of practitioners. And that's helpful when reading the suttas if we aren't bhikkhus or one isn't a bhikkhu, knowing the teachings are still for us. This was a convention of speech. And the final thing to note is at the very end when the Buddha says, it is for the well-being of many that these monastics are practicing in this way. And just the idea that there is great good done just by living in harmony quietly together with others, and the Buddha validating that it is a great gain for the people of this land. So there's so much in this. And then finally, that one phrase, why don't I put aside what I want to do and do what my venerable friends want to do? So, Ajahn, what about you? What else?
Yeah, just after that statement, this recollection, almost self-priming of, why don't I put aside what I want to do and do what my fellows in the holy life want to do? The next line is, it seems we are different in body, but one in mind. Nana hiko no kaya ekancha manye chitanti.
Nice.
We're of one mind. And that's a fascinating reflection. I think it's a lot deeper than it might seem at first. We're different in body, but one in mind. And that's true on many levels. My entire experience of the world, certainly my entire experience of you, is completely within my own mind. Your experience of me is completely within your own mind, that there's this one mind. And the Buddha there is this insertion of manye, it seems to me. So the Buddha's really not wading into like rough ontological waters of, is this panpsychism thing? Are we all, is there only mind, or is it totally a solipsistic universe where everything only exists in my mind? Is it like a matrix? The Buddha isn't trying to go there. This isn't a philosophical statement. It's a truth statement. And it's a sociological, it's a helpful framework for just communal harmony. So that's one thing. Another thing is that this is just how so many of us live in monasteries, so similar to the time of the Buddha. Ajahn Jayasara's hermitage is framed in this way. Not all monks live in a monastery with, dozens and dozens of monastics. There are these setups where people are living in like a gated area. This happens. And then the protocols, the specifics of when they see the Buddha, they go and get his robes, they put out a seat, they get washing water ready, they wash his feet. And we do this in Thailand, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's almost unfortunate. It is unfortunate that we don't have,
feet to wash.
Feet to wash, yeah. It's a beautiful thing. I've washed many a foot in my day, and it's a humbling and a beautiful thing to wash the feet. The people whose feet I'm washing are not like forcing it upon me, but it's a humbling and beautiful act to do of service to do to someone. So Ajahn, what is the word of the week?
The word of the week is samaga, and that comes from the compound of the root Sang, which means to come together, and Aga, which means apex or meeting place. And you'll hear it in Thai often as Samagi, which means live in harmony. So,
well, everybody, let's all live in harmony for the next week. And if you're on your first time, if it's the first Sunday, then we'll see you over on Zoom if you can make it. And if you're watching this later, then come to the next video next week, Majjhima number 32.
Ajahn.